Alrighty, good morning everyone, or good afternoon, good evening, wherever it is you may be. Uh, Welcome to the 25th State of Sponge. Great to have you
Sure.
here. So, first off, quick audio check. If anyone's having trouble with the stream audio, let us know. Hopefully, it's all good to go, however. So, while I'm here, I'd like to first start off by introducing our guests that we have with us. So today we have Evan, Faith Cow, Inscrutable, Journey, Morph, and Eurogorix. So welcome to everyone here.
Hello.
G'day.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey everyone.
So today we're going to have a nice little stream. Not too much extensive detail to go into this time around. We've all been constantly doing a lot of background work. We do have a few little exciting tidbits, but we also wanted to show off some really cool plugins that have been built. So Journey and the team at Qt.io, hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly, have a really cool music plugin. So we're going to go take a look at that demo and hopefully you all enjoy it. But we'll get to that in a little bit.
And we also get to celebrate the fact we have a 1.20.4 release of Sponge Vanilla now.
Yes, yes. So that process took a little bit of time to get up and running, but we had the 1.20.4 build put out as of a few weeks ago, and so far they seem to have been reasonably stable. I haven't encountered any issues myself, but if anyone else has, as always, please let us know and make a post on the issues board. Alrighty, so speaking of our Sponge Vanilla progress, Faith, would you like to update us on how that's been going and your latest sort of announcement?
Basically, I was trying to update all the snapshots as soon as they come out. A few quite interesting changes. They're using data components now on item stacks, which hopefully they will extend to other stuff as well. Yeah. I have the snapshots working at the moment for server, joining with vanilla client. So
Yes, I see you posted that on the Discord as of, what, 2 hours ago? So that's
yeah.
breaking news. So are there any interesting changes you found under the hood there then?
Yeah, but what I just said, the item stack component stuff is
Yep.
really interesting, and I hope they extend it to other stuff.
Hopefully it should
The
make
hope
it
is
easier.
that they at some point make it possible to define stuff server side and then send it down to the client, so you don't even need a client side mod anymore, but might take a while still.
Yeah, that'd be fun. It'll take us back to the good old days of Spout. Hopefully, yes, without
Getting
having anything
unsecured mod.
client-side.
It was
So,
always one of the worries with Spout was, having unsecured things being sent to the client.
yeah, so obviously depends on keeping a lot of the executable stuff server-side, but
Yeah, it would just use the resource packs and data component format that they introduced, basically.
well, that sounds very promising. So we'll keep an eye on that development. So in terms of the other work with Sponge Vanilla, has there been anything else you've run into while updating the 1.20.4 builds or so on?
Nothing really interesting. They keep breaking stuff internally.
Yeah, well, speaking of the breaking, something we should probably talk about on the stream and invite other people to comment on is our sort of request for comment regarding our versioning system. So we're not sort of planning on changing anything with regards to our versioning immediately.
We're not?
Well,
Damn, we should.
yes, we probably should, but I'm not committing to changing anything as of right now because we don't know what to change it to or whether that would be worthwhile, whether that will cause trouble down the line, or whether we can keep our existing system and just tinker
Yeah.
around the edges.
I
So
think the
that,
existing system is a problem. Is it's sort of a bit of a fudge, really. I mean, we end up basically releasing a new API for every Minecraft version, and now we're looking at possibly releasing a new API for every minor version because of all the changes.
yes, and that's exactly why we're doing this little request for comment.
Yeah.
So
Our
we'd
API
like to
numbering is kind of pointless at this stage, isn't it?
potentially, but also does have legacy uses, so worthwhile seeing what our options are. So yes, if anyone has thoughts regarding better ways to handle our versioning, so keeping the existing system but tinkering around with how we utilize it, changing it, adopting a new system, we would like to hear feedback. Also, if there's any particular problems with our current system that you find frustrating, we'd like to know what those pain points are so we can try and work out how to maybe address them.
I
So,
think the most useful suggestion that's been put forward on this front is actually just to change the API versioning to be the same as the Minecraft versioning, because that just gives us at least one-to-one correspondence.
yes, and that's a potential option there. Or I have seen suggestions where we have sort of subversioning schemes. We keep a broad API version and a Minecraft specific. There's a lot of options. So for those who are unaware, essentially our current naming system, which we've had for quite a while now, we bump the API version whenever there's breaking changes. However, as of Mojang introducing their own new sort of versioning system where they currently make breaking changes in point releases, we haven't actually been able to freeze our API versions until the end of the development cycle of whatever that Minecraft version is. So, for instance, currently we're doing our development for API 11, and we've had breaking versions between 1.20.1, .2, I think there may not have been too many breaking ones between .3 and .4.
But 2.5 there will be again. More breaking
Yes.
changes.
Yeah, so even now we can't actually commit to freezing the API versioning. We're still waiting for, as soon as 1.21 is released, that's when we can freeze it currently. So potentially, tracking Minecraft versions would be easier. We'd obviously want to go back and say, update or to match that because we have a scenario where previously there's a lot of crossover between those. But the other potential thing is whether we want to have this sort of general overarching naming system. But we haven't had too many major breaking changes in terms of full API breaks since the API 7 to 8 transition. So we might be fine just doing the version tracking. Anyway, a little prelude. So we're very open to comments regarding that. If you have thoughts or so on, post them on the forums, on the Discord, or you can put them in chat right now. We're very much open to investigating this. We are aware that it's sort of a bit of a pain point, so we'd like to address that. I've seen a couple of comments in the Minecraft chat, so I might just go over those.
Yeah, I think we sort of mentioned some stuff about the tracking the version correspondence before anyway.
Okay, apparently Neo has a decent idea for simplifying a version that had e.g. 1.20.2 to 20.2. Yeah, that's possible, but we wouldn't really worry too much about having extra one in front.
I think
Um,
having the API and the version there is almost redundant nowadays. That's the point, I guess.
Yeah, that's part of it. Because previously we did have stuff like API 8.1.2, etc. Unless we're going to adopt that with regards to the breaking changes. But the Semver there
Yeah,
doesn't
it
really work
doesn't.
because we
Yeah.
should just iterate the full number in that case, which would
With
get
the
frustrating.
point releases, we only had additions usually, so that's still simple. But yeah, we can't really do without breaking the API, at least for a few small things, if they make breaking changes in point releases. And then we have the issue that we can't really support all of the point releases, so usually we try to support the latest one.
Yeah, that makes for an issue there.
And this is before we have to worry about things like Sponge and Forge and Sponge Neo Forge. Which one we go there. But that won't happen until we've got a good version for 1.16.5. Well, sorry, 1.19.2, isn't it? Or 1.19.4. That's what we're developing now, isn't it? Too early in the morning for me.
Yes. We're still working towards SpongeForge, so we're not at the stage where we need to make a commitment to which path to go forward. We're obviously considering them. We just haven't worked out which way to go, and obviously it depends partially on community support for each and also difficulty in updating to each platform. So if there's any sort of major breaking changes under the hood, that makes it difficult for us to go one way or the other.
I suspect we might end up being a benefit just skipping a Sponge Forge release for 1.19 entirely, owing to the fact that, to be honest, most devs seem to be developing for 1.19.2 anyway, rather than the 1.19.4. Even backporting stuff from the 1.20 versions to the 1.19.2 versions.
Yeah, and that's one of the things where it makes our existing API versioning system harder. That fact that we might break our API version and not be able to have backwards compatibility when the community adopts one of these earlier point releases. So, also open to hearing feedback regarding that. If people are using Forge or Neo, what your views are, what your thoughts are, opinions on the plugin community, the modding community on each side of those, with regards to how many mods have been developed. We're always interested to hear feedback on that. Okay. Before I move on, was there anything else regarding SpongeForge any of our developers wanted to bring up and mention?
Well, SpongeForce builds are now available on the download site. So feel free to test and to report issues.
We have 1.19.4 downloads now, do we?
That's it, yeah.
Excellent.
And maybe soon 1.20, but I can't promise anything yet.
We'll take it. I was actually aware that we'd gone to the 1.19.4, so I need to update my stuff. There we are. Excellent. 1.19.4, 4.1, say 45.1.19, API 10, RC 1515. Excellent. I will have to actually check that out myself and update.
It would be a bit skeletal at the moment, imagine.
But you got to start somewhere. Yes.
Let's go have a dance party.
I reckon the dance party would be a good little break. So, anyone keen on testing out the SpongeForge 1.19.4 builds? Yep, hop on Sponge downloads, check that out, and please let us know what bugs you find, because I'm sure you'll find them at this development stage. It is still very early, but finding those bugs allows us to help track them down and fix up everything. Okay, so Inscrutable, you wanted to take us to the little dance stage, did you?
Well, if everyone just wants to jump through the portal here, we'll be able to go off to the custom world that was provided to us for this purpose. The kind people at Qt.io have provided us with both a custom Sponge plugin and a custom world to show what they can actually do, or what they can do as opposed to what we can do with the Sponge API. Shall we hit it?
I reckon so.
I swear the quality of the build here is as good as the quality of the plugin.
It is quite the show.
And there you have it.
Fantastic.
I'm kind of surprised, but our TPS stayed pretty good under that too.
Yeah, we managed to survive.
And bear in mind that wasn't a mod. That was a Sponge plugin.
It is very impressive, the amount of particle effects and everything going on there. Joni, would you like to talk to us a little about that?
Sure. Well, that takes yeah. The new Minecraft versions have entities that you can use to display items. So we use that, and you can transform them in different ways. So we spread them displays so we can make them look like lasers. And with the resource pack, we can also change the textures itself and put the actual music in the client, so players can actually hear it. But I think the stream was missing it, so that's our fault on our end. But it's basically fancy math, but I'm taking advantage of the item displays. So it's quite simple, but it's quite difficult to pull off. So there's that.
It does look extremely difficult to pull off. That is quite the effort.
Yeah, it looks really cool, but so the effort put into it is definitely worth it.
So I hear you've also got that working with several other songs. So what's the experience building a song into the plugin like?
As far as I know, it's the music is put through Python script, and that texture pack is generated through Python script. But the effects are when they are triggered is actually hand coded. So you need to configure something yourself, but it's mostly automatic.
Oh, that is very impressive. So, quite the show. So thank you to Joni and friends at Kit.io for letting us take a look and test that out. That was a really impressive show they put on.
Also, thanks for letting us borrow the world too. I mean, if anyone wants to take a look upstairs, it's absolutely stunning. There's a lot more of it.
I'll follow you around. See what we've got up here. Little portal there. Oh dear. Oh wow. I was not aware. That is quite something. I thought the stage was impressive, but that's pretty cool having a little theater underneath this whole big world up here. So we might have to do some more little demonstrations like that in our future little Stay of Sponges. I thought that was quite fun.
Oh, look! If anyone else wants to share their private plugins with us, we'd be absolutely delighted. This was quite a remarkable experience and well worth seeing.
Yes, and certainly quite the city to have a look at. Oh, sorry, I interrupted someone.
Oh no, I was going to say it's a pity this one didn't get into our plugin competition.
Oh, I'll have to set up another one at some point.
It certainly would have been a contender.
So in the meantime, just to make sure I don't lose track of time, while you're talking Inscrutable, would you like to discuss the docs at all?
Oh yeah. I swear I'll get back to doing some things on the docs soon. But we are, as always, seeking contributions and so forth. We would like to actually sort of like wrap up our current editing version of the docs and just move on to the latest API version. But it's not quite going to work at the moment, and we do have a few things that are somewhat void. So yeah. It's one of the things is that, it's an enormous undertaking to update all the various parts of the docs, particularly when it comes to the plugin development sections, which are quite extensive and which are the bits that have the most churn. So we really need people who are somewhat familiar with both, the API development aspect of it and also, what the changes are so that they can help us put it in there. Because I can tell you, I can't get my head around that lot myself.
Yeah, certainly having some additional people who know what they're doing in some of these parts would very much make the process easier. Yeah, so if anyone here is looking at, contributing to Sponge in any way, docs are a great place to get started, especially if you're a plugin developer, because you have a lot of experience with using the API and might know, oh, there's this little trick that even the developers don't know about, or fancy ways of, getting things done, or just little pain points to be like, oh, you can do this process in 2 different ways, and one of them is substantially easier. So little things like that make a big difference. They're really helpful. So if you're wondering where to get started and don't want to immediately jump into the API or implementations, Sponge Docs is a great place.
Saves you a lot of NMS.
This is true. This is very true. So I'd also like to open things up to Q&A. If anyone has any questions, comments, so on, you'd like to put in the chat, we'll get around to discussing those. This is the main point we're here.
Well, there's always the elephant in the room.
Oh, I didn't notice an elephant. Pretty big stage. Thought I would have spotted it.
No, I was sort of thinking, Forge versus Neo Forge. I mean, they're both still going. Development's still going. At some point, when we get a nice shiny, 1.19 version, we would like to move on and look at Sponge Forge or Sponge Neo Forge. But yeah, this decision has still not been made as to which is better or which is worth, or whether we need to be doing both, or whether there's another team out there that wants to pick up one of them or what.
Yes, this is something that has come up.
It's going to be a long-running problem, really, if it's a case of there's 2 of them. If there's Forge and Neo Forge continuing, then we've got to pick one or the other or both, and people are going to complain no matter which one we pick. So yeah. And there's certainly be a lot of churn in Neo Forge. So that they've rolled forward with a lot of API changes that didn't happen in Forge for various reasons.
Yes, which complicates matters somewhat. Some changes good, some I'm unaware of whether they're good or bad. I'll have to have a look myself. But yes, as was mentioned in the comment just there have been a few major breaking changes, so it means that supporting both is more of an effort, and that's a question of, time and resources.
Maybe someone could make a clever, Forge Neo Forge jar that handles it all.
I have seen some plugins adopting not plugins, mods adopting strategies like that. Though that's obviously more difficult when you have something on the scale of Sponge.
Well, yeah, I mean, if people can set up a mod to work on, Bucket and Sponge and, several other things as well, it seems to be perfectly reasonable, but it's still a lot of work, and it does increase the size of the package and so on.
Yes. And with regards to our questions and comments, we've got a few there in the chat, which I might just read out. LexiKick says, option 3, Sponge Fabric. That has also, that does regularly come up, and that's sort of not out of the running, I guess.
I'd
If
love it
people
if
are willing to step up and develop Sponge Fabric, or someone wants to specifically do Sponge Forge, Sponge Neo, that would obviously help.
Yeah, we will give you all the help we can, but we won't necessarily be able to give you much dev assistance because, we've got our own problems to sort out.
Yes, it's a question of resourcing more than, is this technically possible? It should be technically possible to support both. It just means more developer time, and that's always a bit of a difficulty. So in determining how to allocate that. But if resources are not scarce and someone wants to take a look and develop one, that would really help us out. So if you want to put the needle on the dial, that's a great way to do it. So, going on from that, yeah, Lexikick says, from the perspective of wanting my plugins to be usable by most people, I'd say Forge because that will be the most popular still. And yes, that's something we're aware of. Use is obviously a big part of it, whether there's a audience for it. But also, yes, Forge are doing a lot of interesting changes under the hood. It may be technically easier to support them in some sense. I remember that we had some discussion about that earlier.
I've actually heard some developers say they'd prefer to go to NeoForge because there are changes in it that they wanted. So, it's very hard to decide which is going to be the more popular platform.
Yes, so it's one of those things where we're very much watching and waiting. Yes, Metalcation just mentioned there. NeoForge uses Mojo maps as their runtime mappings, which is lovely. That does make it easier because Sponge Vanilla is built off Mojang mappings, I believe. And a lot of our difficulty in getting Sponge Forge updated, and the reason why it's been slower, is having to update our dev chain to include that. The conversion to the Sarge mappings.
Although it could be by the time we get there that Forge has adopted the same as well.
Yes, I have heard rumors along those lines, so something we'll have to see.
Damn, there's a subway down here.
I'll send this user over to you, Inscrutable. We'll find out what you're doing exploring in those depths. So Metalcadian mentioned, hopefully Forge makes a switch, then we'll be able to use the same mixins for 3 platforms instead of remapping for both Forge Fabric. And that will make things substantially easier. It would be nice if we can keep everything on the same mapping version. That makes porting between those multiple versions much easier. So that would make it better for supporting both Forge and Fabric if that were to happen. So while we're going, are there any other questions or comments the audience would like us to address? I'll quickly have a scroll back through the chat just in case there was anything I've missed from earlier. There's a comment. So Tatalib runs on every platform with one jar. But yes, a whole API implementation would be hell. Very much so. I'm sure you've experienced the difficulty in supporting just a smaller subset of an API across multiple versions and multiple platforms. So something on the scale of Sponge is quite the effort.
Which is also why, something like making Sponge for Fabric is going to be a major exercise for anyone who wants to give it a go too.
Yes. Lexi Kick said, I also sort of missed it earlier. Did you saying you're planning releases for popular versions like 1.19.2? Essentially, no, we're not planning on doing releases for 1.19.2. But we also wanted to bring that up because that's one of the pain points with our current API versioning scheme, is that when one of these earlier point releases gets adopted as the big new modded Minecraft version, we've often already had to break our API to support a newer point release with vanilla. So it makes it difficult to support, an older version of the API at the same time. Whereas if we change our versioning system, we wouldn't have, in the case of like 1.19.4, we have API 10, which is built for 1.19.4, and we would have a API 10 retro version for 1.19.2. So yeah, we just wanted to bring that because we know that is one of the issues to be addressed.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to anticipate, which one is going to end up being the major treated version. You normally expect it to be the one that's the end of the line, but unfortunately, in a few cases, notably 1.19.2, it hasn't.
Yes, and especially with the new Minecraft versioning system, where they do make those breaking changes, there is a good, technical under the hood reason for that. Because 1.19.4 is has quite a few breaking changes underneath. So it's not just a trivial matter of updating.
And then, of course, we've had the same exercise with 120 version 1, 2, 3, 4, and we're waiting for 5 now, so yay.
It will be interesting to see what happens with 1.20.5, because there seem to be quite a few additional blocks and features there. But I'm not sure of how many additional API breaking changes there will be.
A lot.
A lot. Oh no.
Well, given their release cadence is quite slow nowadays, I'm
It's
surprised it's
not
not a major
that
version.
much at the moment from 1.24 to 5. We have a few registry stuff that got moved. Basically, it was an enum before in vanilla, and now it's registries. And I think that's mostly it. Bit of recipe stuff. It's not that much breaking for the API, but implementation, it's a lot of work. Like
Yes. Oh, I mean, at least that's an advantage, that the API won't break too terribly, but implementation is obviously more frustrating for our developers to get fixed up.
Yeah, let's all go to modding Bedrock instead.
Oh dear, that could be quite something. And as Lexi points out, that the breaking changes in point releases are annoying, and yes, they are. They very much are. We can understand why Mojang are doing it from a technical sense. It makes it easier to maintain code bases, because previously, essentially, they were forking these off.
us in the future, usually. Like moving stuff into registries is easier to handle, because if there's an existing registry which can just expose it using keys and stuff like that. What we had to do before was basically a wrapper for the enum or something like that, and register it manually every time. So it's nice when that moves into registries, but it obviously also breaks stuff.
Yeah, it's one of the things where technically what they're doing under the hood is useful and is helpful. It's just the release system is probably a bit more painful for modders than it needs to be, but it's understandable why they're doing it. There's a comment here: behavior packs are also wacky JSON hell. Well, I mean, JSON hell is pretty much a Minecraft modding experience. Back in the oh dear, that's over a decade ago now, isn't it? I was thinking back to the early bucket days, where just everything, we had JSONs everywhere. Woodpeckers mentioned.
JSON? We had YMLs everywhere first, didn't we?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, JSON's were
JSON's
improved.
modern.
Yeah, wow, that's concerning that it's so long ago. We're getting close to 15 years. So Waterpicker is mentioning here with new item stack components. I'm actually on the camp calling Mojang cowards for only doing the treatment to item stacks. And yes, Faith is in support. Yes, so things have improved somewhat at least. But as in the case of technology, it's always, 2 steps forward, 1 step back.
Yeah,
But it makes things interesting.
well, Sponge didn't like JSON either anyway, did we? We went our own thing, Hocon.
Yes, yes. Yeah, and Waterpicker, I think that we've been aware of that. It will help. Obviously, it's not everything, but Mojang seem to be making the right steps with their development, which is good. I think if I've got that right, Faith.
Yeah. And it's not just item stacks, it's also a bit on item types at the moment. I saw it when I updated to the last snapshot. So, yeah. Let's hope that they move it to other stuff too, like player and other entities. And block entities and stuff like that. But it is a lot of work for them too, right? Because they have to change everything to components.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think as Waterpicker was saying, it'd be nice to have more stuff. And I'm sure they'll get around to that in due course. Just a bunch of effort, from what I understand. And in the Twitch chat, we've got a few comments on Sponge Rock and Sponge Bedrock. Yeah, best you're gonna get is you're using a compatibility layer, one of those proxy systems to translate. Because oh boy, we are not porting Sponge to Bedrock.
We're not. I mean, someone else can. I'd be happy to support. Lend them all the support they want. All the moral support anyway. Applause, cheers.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how you do that, because given the different languages under the hood, you need to build some kind of translator. Oh, that'd be a mess. Harry's Gamer
PHP.
mentioned, yeah, the biggest Bedrock server is written PHP. I think that's right. It's been years since I took a look at that ecosystem, but I seem to remember that because there originally was not a Bedrock server. It was just the client sort of hosting it. So people they did a ground up build like the old Glowstone system, and what we were attempting with Spout, basically for Bedrock. Yeah, PHP is an interesting choice. Wonder how that's working out for them.
I would think we're more likely to see someone do Sponge for Fabric than for Bedrock, to be honest.
Yes, Fabric would be substantially easier. Well, I think. Oh, sorry, you go.
I was just going to say, if there are people who are interested in any of these projects, jump in sometime and have a chat to our developers, and we'll see what we can do. I mean, we can't sort of give you a whole lot of dev time. We can certainly give what other assistance we can and lots of access to lots of resources. Because look, a Sponge Fabric version would be really well received, but we just don't have enough developers to do it at the moment.
Yeah, Now, Waterpicker has say one issue with the fabric situation, and we most likely need a working Sponge Forge for fabric support. Reference in doing it.
Yeah, I don't think so. Like most of the code is in Sponge Vanilla. Like the Sponge common, basically. Like there's not that much in Forge.
Yeah, and given that both Sponge Vanilla and Fabric would be using Mojang mappings.
It's basically just doing the glue work so that Fabric events, for example, if they have them, I don't really use Fabric, but it has to work with Sponge and vice versa. Stuff like that. Yeah, but someone has to do it.
Yeah, and we'd be happy to help people who want to give it a shot.
I mean, even if it doesn't work in the long run, it will help inform the Sponge project itself, which will still be useful.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if it's events or callbacks or whatever. It basically, if a Fabric plugin changes something or a mod, whatever word is they use, it has to also reflect the changes in our events. Because if it doesn't, then a Fabric mod can change something and we can't do anything about it in a plugin. Like change a block and then we can't cancel it, for example. Yeah, exactly. Hot ticket there. Mode. That's it.
And Lexi Kick was saying, excited to try out Sponge Forge 1.19.4 later. And yes, I will also have to take a look myself. And there's a comment, someone was working on a sponge fabric not too long ago, but the PR was closed. I seem to remember that. I will take a look through that PR a bit later. I'm not sure if anyone here has already done so. I think that was from a few years back, right? Yep, 2021. So that was a while ago. Things have changed under the hood quite substantially since then, I
I
imagine.
think one issue with this pair was it had to use a custom loader. The default Fabric loader doesn't have all the functionalities that Forge and today NeoForge mod loader has. I mean, it was like this a few years ago. I don't know for today. Maybe it has improved.
But yeah, certainly the whole situation with the different modding platforms is one we are looking at very closely because we'll have to start making calls as of 1.20.1, I believe. Morph said.
121.
Yeah. So yes, 1.21. Well, I believe we are starting to get close to the 1 hour mark, so we might begin wrapping things up shortly. Oh, I think Waterpicker has a comment to make, so we'll wait for that. Uh-oh. Yep. TNT is coming in. Yes, 1.20.1 fortunately are the same. So there will be breaks, but I think with 1.21 there's going to be even more substantial breaks. Yeah, there's a few that they've held off on until later versions. Oh, the snowball fight has begun, it seems. So I believe with that we might wrap up the stream and get involved in the chaos ourselves. Does that sound good to everyone? Oh, fantastic. I'll sign off, and I'd like to say thank you to all of our guests on stream and all the attendees in the audience. Thanks for the questions. So thank you, Evan, Faith, Inscrutable, Joni, Morph, and Yaragorix for being here and helping set up. Thank you to the people over at Cube for providing that wonderful little demo. That was really fun to see and certainly changes things up quite a bit. Actually looks like someone's fired up the stage as is again. Well, thank you all. Thanks for coming. We'll sign off now after the end of the song.